Secretary will read the sixth order.
Consideration of votes and schedules, Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
We will now consider the votes one by one separately, and if parties wish to make declaration of vote, they must just indicate so. I will put vote first, vote one. A general declaration of vote? Is it a general one? I will allow the member of the opposition to do a general one. Yes. Just wait for the space to be cleared, but then we proceed. I want members to please give attention to what's happening now. We're reaching now a very technical stage of proceedings, and I want everybody to attend, please. This is the first declaration of vote, a general one on all the votes by the Leader of the Opposition. Then we may proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The 1994 democratic breakthrough presented us with an opportunity to transform South Africa from the evil white minority regime to one that is committed to serve the interest of all, prioritizing the historically marginalized, which are blacks in general and Africans in particular. As we approach our National Freedom Day celebration, we remember our first democratically elected president, Comrade Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, starting a journey towards the total liberation of our people from white domination. Our attitude as an ANC in government is to continue to prioritize the poor, marginalized and destitute who happen to be black, working class and women. There is no amount of empty rhetoric, no propaganda and blue lies that will confuse the South African majority from understanding the historic fact. DA will never win our people's hearts, despite their continuation to distort our history, abusing resources to bribe our brothers and sisters, including bourgeoisie media, that is reactionary and anti-majoritarian. Instead of placing the needs of our people at the forefront of its agenda, the DA Alliance has in this House, time and time again, obsessed itself with closing down the democratic space for interrogation and accountability. The behavior of MEC Windy earlier today and that of Premier Helen Zille yesterday are examples of how the administration cannot handle interrogation, rants and shouts and punishes members of the opposition for holding them accountable and democratically elected to do so. The suspension of the ANC Chief Whip and Deputy Chief Whip for questioning the conduct of the Speaker and the Premier is another example of how this legislature is used to shut down democratic participation. As the ANC caucus, we welcome the massive resources allocated by the ANC national government to improve the quality of life of our people in this province. In 2016-2017 MTEF period, we see 6.5% increase in the provincial equitable share allocation to the Western Cape from 41 billion in 2016-17 and 47 2018-2019. Although the DA wants us to believe that the allocation budget did not grow, the 6.5% increase in the MTF period shows a growth in real and nominal terms. This is actual fact even above the anticipated CPI of 6.3%. Given the current volatile economic climate, one would have expected the Western Cape government to present to us a budget which will place integrated development and equitable growth at the center of this year's budget to ensure that there is maximum participation of the masses in the economy of the province. We have instead been presented with a budget which maintains current economic status quo. Treasury has failed to present us with a plan for radical economic transformation, equity and inclusive growth. As the ANC, we expect resources be used to alleviate poverty, bring adequate housing, deal with devastating flooding and fires that continue to displace, destroy and kill our people, dignified sanitation, address long queues in our clinics and hospitals, etc. Unless all these serious problems that affect our particular racial group are addressed through these resources as they are allocated for, there will be no reason for the ANC to support this budget.
Thank you. I now put vote number one. Any objections to the approval of vote one? There's an objection. No. Those in favour will say aye. Aye. Those against no? No. I think the ayes have it. The ANC's dissension will be recorded. I now put vote number 2. Is declaration of vote? The Honourable Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The Democratic Alliance supports vote 2, Provincial Parliament. May I take this opportunity to thank the Honourable Speaker and his staff for the professional and thorough manner in which they interact with the Parliamentary Oversight Committee. During the debate of this vote and during this declaration of vote number 2, the Chief Whip of the official opposition made serious assertions and did his best to portray the Provincial Parliament as an institution in crisis. As we have become accustomed to from him, he twisted information to suit his political agenda and dragged the Provincial Parliament full square into the party political domain. As a seasoned politician, he should have known better than to use misinterpretations and half-truths and portraying those as gospel. Maybe his sources of information were not as reliable after all. He complains about the inadequate increase in the budget of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament and blames the provincial government for trying to close down the so-called democratic space. But what are the facts? The Provincial Parliament received the second highest percentage increase of all the departments from the Provincial Treasury. The Honourable Ace said that Programme 1 decreased by 20.07%, whilst Programme 3 had a reduction of 10.7%, asserting that the money is taken from the core business and added to the administration. What are the facts? Programme 1 shows that this increased primarily due to the additional funding received from the Provincial Treasury for the implementation of the ERP and FUMPLA, a legal imperative. Additionally, the WCPP staff performance bonus and staff training are budgeted for with this programme. Programme 3 shows a reduction of 10.7%, as the Hansard language services budgeted will be reduced by 46.66%, and this is due to a policy decision to print one volume of Hansard containing all languages, official languages. The Standing Committee's budgets on 2015-16 included funding for the additional foreign travel. In the current budget, additional travel has been removed and is now in line with what the budget would have been if inflationary increases were taken into account. And then the Honourable Ace wants the Speaker to announce that no travelling takes place this year. How rich. The Honourable Ace made a big issue of the projected under expenditure for the 2015-16 financial year, for which an amount of 4.610 million is projected. What he failed to tell this House is that the bulk of the underspending is on enabling allowances for members. If they listen, they might learn something. What he failed to tell us is that the underspending is on enabling allowances for members, open orders and orders that can only be placed early in the new financial year. Honourable Ace also raised the increase of 12.57% in the budget of communication and information and made a rather personal remark about a certain staff member, thereby abusing his position to criticise a person who cannot defend himself. How low can one go to suit one's own agenda? What are the facts? The complete registry function, including staff costs, have been shifted from Security and Facilities Management sub-program to the C&I sub-program by the former Secretary, Mrs. Vakira, after a management decision by the Secretariat. The Speaker had absolutely nothing to do with that decision. The Act, FUMPLA, says that the accounting officer must establish an internal audit unit and the executive authority must appoint an audit committee. The WCPP opted to use the internal audit unit of the Department of the Premier on an agency basis, which is perfectly legal. Similarly, the executive authority appointed the shared audit committee of WCPP. There is no confusion of roles whatsoever. In closing, Deputy Speaker, the performance of the government is directly linked to the performance of the legislature in overseeing executive action and holding the executive to account. If the performance of our provincial government, both from an accounting and service delivery perspective, is anything to go by, then this provincial parliament should be commended on doing a sterling job. The DA supports vote 2.
Thank you. Object. I then put the vote. Those in favour will say aye. No. Those against no. So the ayes have it. The dissension will be recorded. I move on to vote number 3, Provincial Treasury. Any objections? Objection, vote 3? There's no. The objection against vote 3 as well will be recorded. Vote 4. Please indicate whether members want to make a declaration vote, otherwise I'm just carrying on. Vote 4, the objection will be recorded of the ANC as well. Similarly with vote 5, can we record the objection of the ANC? Vote 6, health, the same. Vote 7, social development, objection will be recorded. Vote 8, human settlements, the objection will be recorded. Vote 9, environmental affairs and development planning, objection will be recorded. I put vote 10, transport and public works, the objection will be recorded. I put vote 11, agriculture, the objection will also be recorded. Vote 12, economic development and tourism, the objection will be recorded. Vote 13, cultural affairs and sport, the objection will be recorded. And vote 14, local government, likewise the objection will be recorded. That concludes the decision on the votes. And I put the schedule. Any objections to the schedule? There's an objection to the schedule. The objection will be recorded. I put clauses 1 to 10 of the bill. The objection will be recorded. If that is the case, will be recorded. I put the short title. You're also objecting to the short title? The short title is not objected to. We will continue with the short title without objection. The Secretary will read the 7th order of the day.
Finalisation of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
I see the Minister of Finance to move.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I came to this House on the 3rd of March 2016 when I introduced the 2016 MTEF budget, a budget for growth. The various budget votes were extensively discussed in the relevant standing committees, and I wish to thank all the honourable members for taking part in the various debates on the respective budget votes. I want to express my special thanks to the Premier and my Cabinet colleagues for your support and your understanding for the difficult fiscal environment. To all the accounting officers, the CFOs, the senior managers of both the various departments, the public entities and the provincial legislature, I want to thank all of them for your financial expertise in putting together this estimate of expenditure. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I now move that the Western Cape Appropriation Bill 2016 be finalised.
Any objections to the bill being finalised? There is an objection. Can we just record the objection of the ANC again? The ANC's objection will be recorded. The Secretary will read the bill.
Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
The bill will be sent to the Premier for assent. Secretary will read the 8th order.
Consideration of principle of the Western Cape Additional Adjustments Appropriation Bill.
I again see the Minister of Finance.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, further to the adjusted estimates of provincial expenditure 2015, which I tabled on the 20th of November 2015, I have, as recently as 17 March 2016, tabled an additional adjusted estimates of provincial expenditure. This, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I did in compliance with Section 20 of the 2015 DORA. The additional 50 million rand allocated to the Western Cape by the Department of Basic Education has resulted in an increase in the education infrastructure grant for this Department of Education in the Western Cape. This additional allocation has been published by the National Minister of Finance in the Government Gazette on 7th March 2016. As indicated during the tabling, Deputy Speaker, in order to be able to spend according to these additional allocations in the 2015-16 financial year, it is thus necessary to include the amounts in an additional adjustment appropriation bill for the 2015-16 financial year. The purpose of this funds, as per the National Conditional Grant Schedule, is inter alia to help accelerate construction, maintenance, upgrading and rehabilitation of new and existing infrastructure in education. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Western Cape Education Department will use the additional funding in terms of the infrastructure norms and standards, which includes funding for the building of additional classrooms, school halls and ablution facilities and science laboratories. Approximately 34 schools across the Western Cape will benefit. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Western Cape has the capacity to spend these additional funds, and I want to assure the people of the Western Cape that we will do so responsibly. I thank you.
Are there any objections to the principle of the bill being approved? There are no objections. Agreed to. The Secretary will read the bill.
Western Cape Additional Adjustments Appropriation Bill.
The Secretary will also read the 9th order.
Consideration of vote and schedule Western Cape Additional Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2015-2016 financial year.
There's only one vote in this schedule, it's vote number 5, and I will afford the opportunity for declarations of vote if any parties wish to make so. Honourable Olivier.
Deputy Speaker, I rise in support of the 50 million rand additional adjustment allocated to vote 5 from the national government. This conditional grant is to be spent on science labs, school halls, new schools and upgrading of existing school buildings, which is much needed, particularly in our poor and rural schools, where our learners continue to gather in open spaces between school blocks and continue to be taught in vandalized schools and no science labs. Deputy Speaker, having received information on how this allocation will be spent and the criteria used to derive at the schools to be assisted, I must, on behalf of the African National Congress on this side, maybe as well as you on the other side, thank the national government for its for considering the Western Cape when distributing this allocation to the different provinces. We are happy, Deputy Speaker.
Order.
Deputy Speaker, we are happy and we commend the national government for this political and financial maturity by both National Treasury as well as national government for considering the people of the Western Cape, the learners, as well as the educators that indeed will benefit from this 50 million. In conclusion, Deputy Speaker, we are aware that if we haven't received this 50 million rand, 33 schools would not have been assisted. And hence, we believe that this was a mature decision from national government because it could have been any other of the 8 provinces that is left. But they also considered the Western Cape in this allocation. And we hope and believe that this allocation will be used for the purpose it is intended for. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I then put the vote. Minister, no. Any objections? No objections agreed to. That completes the decision of the vote. I'll now put the schedule to the vote. Any objections? No objection agreed to. I'll now put clauses 1 to 3 of the bill. No objections agreed to. I'll put the short title. No objections agreed to. The Secretary will read the 10th order.
Finalisation of the Western Cape Additional Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2015-2016 financial year.
And now I see the Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. We are very thankful for this 50 million rand. But all of us have families in the Eastern Cape. And it is sad that because of the incompetence of the Eastern Cape,
Order.
this wonderful national government took away 530 million rand from the Eastern Cape government. And the money is redistributed elsewhere. So we are thankful for the 50 million, but this money comes from incompetence. The National Treasury is taking the money away from the Eastern Cape.
Order.
We will have a competent government in the Eastern Cape so that we can spend also that money in that province. All provincial education departments, Honourable Deputy Speaker, are under severe financial constraints, and yet together with the Gauteng and Limpopo, we were given additional funding to spend in the 2015 financial year. 5 provinces received nothing between the Department of Education and the National Treasury. They adjudicated us in the Western Cape to be a responsible and worthy recipient of additional funding. This is a further testimony that the clean audit achieved by the Western Cape Education Department is just another accolade. It is winning us additional resources to support the educational infrastructure. And so we are pleased to see that National Treasury will allocate the resources to provinces where there is capacity to spend and capacity to spend the money well. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I now move that the Western Cape Additional Adjustment Appropriation Bill 2016 be finalised.
Thank you, Minister. Are there any objections to the bill being finalised? No objection. Agreed to. The Secretary will read the bill.
Western Cape Additional Adjustments Appropriation Bill.
The bill will be sent to the Premier for assent.